This week's episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds is continuing, I believe, what is their theme-based ideology or gimmick-based ideology for this season. You'll notice right away. Why? Because it's an episode all in black and white. It's titled A Case of Chiaroscuro, which is an Italian art term meaning light and dark. That's the black and white. It's not the first time we've seen this in Star Trek, actually. There are a few episodes in Voyager where Tom Paris is on the holodeck being Captain Proton in a 1930s pulp movie, so everything appears in black and white. And according to Major Grin, which I saw earlier today on his channel, there was a Star Trek Continues episode, which is the fan film Star Trek Continues, which featured black and white, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy arriving on a planet, all in black and white, because the way the radiation affected the cones in their eyes or something. Basically, that's what happens here. The Enterprise sends a shuttlecraft, including number 1, Dr. Mabenga, and Uhura to retrieve a probe which drifted into Klingon space. It's near a planet called Matar 12, and the radiation from the sun is making everything appear black and white. It's affecting their eyesight. It's still normal. It's just that's what they see. And it's literally exactly the same thing as you heard explained on that episode of Star Trek Continues. After sending the probe back to the Enterprise, a Klingon D7 cruiser shows up and blocks the way for the shuttlecraft to get back. And honestly, they say they haven't seen us yet, and I don't see how they couldn't have, because there's this giant Klingon cruiser there, and the shuttle's right on the screen with it. So maybe their sensors are off. Regardless, the shuttle has to take refuge on the planet below, and it turns out that is a planet that's been occupied by the Klingons. And they're able to land the shuttle, but they get detected. So their concern is, how are we going to get out of here without the Klingons noting us? Well, they decide to go undercover and into the population, the city. Even though they fully admit they've never been here before, they don't know what Matarans look like, and they don't know what they wear. But somehow they do, since all these people kind of look human, or more human than not, and they're all dressed in 1940s attire, because this apparently is a Casablanca-themed episode.
What's a knockout like you doing in a computer-generated gin joint like this?
Now, here's the thing I'm actually wondering. So they hide the shuttle because they're concerned that they'll be tracked. But they aren't natives to the planet, which means if the Klingons are really looking for them, they could scan for life signs somehow and detect humans, or I forget whatever number 1 is, an Olarian or whatever. They could detect alien life signs on a planet of all the same species. I don't know why they go into the city where they could get noticed, especially since it's Klingon-occupied, and they don't know what the hell they're doing there. But someone does recognize number 1 for some reason. It's this guy named Roman who comes up and calls her Nevette. Apparently he knows her and is glad, or seems glad she's there, and calls her a boss. And like I said, she doesn't know who this Nevette is, but she just plays along. She says, "Oh yeah, these are our new recruits." I guess there's some indication that she is in charge of something. At least that's what it appears. We find out that the character Nevette is actually working for Klingons as an enforcer of some sort, and also that she is a resistance fighter. So yeah, this, I guess, the Casablanca theme. It's not Nazi occupied, it's Klingon occupied, and we got a Resistance Underground. And also, the Resistance Underground headquarters is at a bar. Literally looks like a 1940s bar. Everyone's serving drinks and cocktails. Everyone dressed in 1940s attire. So not only do we have this weird color scheme going on, the radiation doesn't just eliminate colors. It creates a 1940s dress code theme, I guess. I don't know. It's someone came up with an idea and ran with it. Yeah, great.
There are several problems.
At this point now, Una probably should be recognizing this is a bad idea to pretend to be this Nevette person, since she apparently is, working with the Klingons and also running the Resistance. She doesn't know who she is or what she's doing, but apparently she looks a lot like her, like exactly like her. But then things kind of get worse because a Klingon shows up. Yeah, a group of Klingons come in. They're led by Commander Kor. Kor? I know Kor. Anyone who watched the original series and Deep Space Nine knows who Commander Kor is. Well, he's in charge, and he's overseeing the occupation. Again, that's very similar to what we saw him do in the original series. And of course, Kor knows Nevette, so now Una has to convince Kor that she's Nevette and a Klingon collaborator, enforcer, whatever. So her life's getting more complicated. This is not a good idea. You guys should have just stayed at the shuttle to begin with, hide out, try to mask her life signs. That would have been smart. But no, let's wander in a city we've never been to.
You've just pointed out how illogical this situation is.
Anyway, they leave, and then Uhura kind of gets arrested by Klingons for trying to interfere once someone is shot because they didn't have proper identification. And she's taken away to be interrogated by the Klingons because, yeah, that's smart. Does no one remember the non-interference clause? Prime directive, anyone?
Captain, a prime directive of non-interference.
Stay out of the way. No? Okay. Well, she goes to get interrogated by Kor, and he uses the mine sifter, I believe is what it was called. That's actually from the episode Errand of Mercy, where Kirk and Spock were trapped on the planet Organia when the Klingons had taken over. With Uhura under arrest, Una and M'Benga are trying to figure out what the heck is going on with this Nevette character. She's working with the Resistance. She's working with the Klingons. What the heck are we doing? We got to get out of here. Let's go. So they go to apparently where she lives, her office. They get this information from the bartender, who apparently is also a member of the Resistance and recognizes Una as Nevette. The facial recognition system recognizes her instantly. So yeah, the computer now thinks this is Nevette. We go inside and find something about plans for an EMP attack on a Klingon's munitions facility. It's supposed to disable the Klingon defenses. So the Resistance is trying to plan some sort of strike against the Klingons, and now they're embroiled in it. Also, while they're there, they find a container that contains a dead and frozen Nevette. And yeah, it looks exactly like Una. And M'Benga says something about, well, it's not unsurprising that there's a doppelganger out there of you. I'm sorry, what?
Are you daft?
I mean, this isn't the mirror universe. If it was a mirror universe, I get the doppelganger. But literally saying, yeah, well, the galaxy is so vast, there's got to be at least one person who looks exactly like you. And this person who Una just stumbled into on this planet, that identity is also a Klingon collaborator and a Resistance fighter against the Klingons. Kel, coincidence?
This isn't reality. This is fantasy.
As I said, Kor interrogates Uhura with the mind sifter, which she is able to resist. She resists the mind scan, which is really incredible, since in the original series, it happened to Spock, and Spock said it was quite difficult.
We Vulcans have certain disciplines which enable me to maintain a shield. Without those disciplines, there would be no protection.
So now, I guess Uhura has better psionic, telepathic, mental capabilities than Mr. Spock.
Ridiculous.
Well, I can get it with the Spock they're presenting on this Strange New World show. The man barely is able to control his emotions. Once Uhura is released, she reunites with M'Benga and Una, and M'Benga suggests, hey, we should get out of here. There's a lot of stuff going on. We're in Klingon territory. We're Starfleet officers, and there's some revolution happening, and we should not be involved with this. It's not their fight. That's actually logical. That makes sense. For Una, no, it's not. Why? Well, I guess she's got a backstory where when she was young, colonizers came to her home and her family chose not to fight back and they got taken over. So she sees it as an opportunity to help the Resistance when she and her family didn't do that when she was young. Why? Where are we pulling this from? We're literally just pulling storylines out of thin air to create a reason to stay on this planet to fight with the Resistance we don't know anything about. What if they're really bad people, these Resistance fighters? We don't know.
Which is actually not important at this time.
So Una makes a command decision to help the Resistance, and what the Resistance needs to trigger the EMP is a Klingon proximity detonator, which Una's, persona Nevette can get from the Klingon depot or whatever facility it's at. She gets the detonator and runs into the guy named Roman, the one who first identified her when she came into town. Turns out that he's actually not a good dude. He's not helping Resistance. He's the one who killed the real Nevette. Now that's weird, right? He kills the real real Nevette. Then Una comes up looking just like her, and it's like, wait a minute, I killed you. And he just plays along.
Most illogical.
But now he says, I know you're not Nevette, and he pulls a weapon and is going to kill her, but she's able to overpower him, doesn't kill him, lets him escape, which you would think is a mistake, but it isn't, because she planted the Klingon detonator on him, and he runs straight to the Klingons to tell them everything that Una had been doing as Nevette and what Nevette had been doing, the whole story. The problem is when he gets towards a Klingon checkpoint and crosses into it, it activates the detonator, which means the EMP goes off, the Klingon force field comes down, and the Resistance now has an opportunity to attack. Una tells the bartender who's the Resistance fighter, you're now the leader of the Resistance, and go fight back. But, those Klingons are going to be kind of mean and nasty once they get here and really fight back against you. But whatever, we've done our bit for king and country. She feels better because she helped the Resistance when her family didn't, so they go home. That's it. They leave. Probably don't know what the hell happened. Most of that planet got wiped out probably by Klingons because of some stupid Starfleet interference. So yeah, that's kind of the story. But there is a B plot, believe it or not. Oh, and that was dumb too.
Waste of time.
There was some sort of tampering that went on with that space probe they brought aboard, and Lon thinks it involves Klingon spies on the Enterprise. I'm not kidding. She thinks there's a Klingon spy on the Enterprise. Turns out that the probe was tampered with by Nurse Chapel. Why? Well, there was some information on that probe about a medical ship illegally crossing into Klingon territory to provide some help to some people. So she had to get that and take it out. That's the story. So we're like, oh, you did this? Okay. We should have tampered with it, but it sounds like you did it for a good cause, so we're all clean. We're good. That's the B plot. Lon does her job. Chapel tried to hide a secret, and no one gets in trouble.
What a horrible story.
All right. So again, another fantastic episode of Strange New Worlds. Yeah, you got to figure like they think there's a good ideas are starting, and then it just goes sideways because there is a lot going on here. They had their little theme. We're like, hey, Casablanca, black and white, radiation. So now we got our gimmick because we're all about gimmicks, like I said. But Una makes no sense. So this is her first mission as a commander. She got commander rank, first one. She thought she was being held up because of her, Illyrian heritage and, genetic alteration, that sort of thing. No, it's probably just because she's stupid. Because there's no reason she should be doing any of this stuff in this episode at all. You don't go into a town where you don't know what the natives look like. Yeah, how'd they figure out they wore clothes like that? And they just replicated it on a shuttle? I don't think a shuttle's equipped to replicate clothes like that. But they go in anyway, and then she joins in with the Resistance and joins in with the Klingons, and it's like, what are you doing? Yeah, you look like this person. Well, then get someone to hide you and get the hell out of Dodge. No, she adopts both personas, I guess, and tries to navigate a system which she knows nothing about.
Unwise.
Yeah. Again, the ridiculousness of like, it's you. You look exactly like this person. Even Mabenga talked about it, like I said before. It's ridiculous. There had to have been a better way to do this. Just like, you look a lot like so-and-so. I'm just like, oh, we're related or something. I don't know. But to say, you're exactly this person, that's just stupid.
You can do better than that.
The other stupid decision, of course, is Una helping out with these Resistance fighters. Yeah, we know they're resisting the Klingons, but we don't know anything else. And she uses her own personal backstory as a basis to decide this is the fight we should have. Again, like I said, they're Starfleet officers. What are you doing? You get caught, you're going to start a war again. They even said that at one point. We don't want the war with the Klingons heating back up again. So they go down there and interfere. Literally interfere. Stupid idea, bad decision. But, it is her first mission as a commander, so maybe she makes better decisions later on. I don't know.
There are always possibilities, Spock said.
The whole idea of, I know what these people are going through, therefore we need to get involved in your rebellion. It's contrived. It doesn't feel organic at all. It's just a convenient way to put them there and to create a story for Una. That's it. She did have some good background story beforehand, But now, again, with them focusing on gimmicks as opposed to actual stories and not having much follow-up with characters, this is not a good way to go.
To deny the facts would be illogical, Doctor.
All right, let's talk about Kor, because holy crap, this is a mess. First off, this is not Kor. All you had to do is go back and look at John Colicos in Aaron and Bercy or in any of the DS9 episodes he was in and say, okay, now I understand how to play Kor. Here's Kor in, around Kirk time, and here's Kor when he's, as an older, almost retired Klingon, Dahar master. But no, we get this guy, and he has none of the presence that John Colicos has. John Colicos had this suave menace when he was playing Kor in Errand of Mercy. I mean, go also watch him play Baltar in the original Battlestar Galactica. His voice, his mannerisms, he's charming, charismatic, and scary as hell. That's what it's supposed to be at that time. But no, that's not what we get. We just get generic Klingon occupation villain. I'm in charge here. I'm menacing. That's it. But we have to use Kor because, hold on. Don't forget. The key jangles, guys. If you're going to use Kor, and I know it's too tough because none of the people who are going to be watching this show would know anything about the augment virus that affected the Klingons, which was explained Star Trek Enterprise, which is why Klingons look different in the original series as opposed to what they were presented starting in the movies going forward, because they had ridges. Klingons in the original series did not have ridges. It was mentioned once or twice before in certain things I cannot talk about, but the explanation was again, I don't remember which Sung it was, one of Dr. Noonien-Singh's ancestors, maybe it was Erickson, may have been Erickson, was experimenting with augment DNA, and then the Klingons got hold of it and tried to create Klingon augments, and it affected them weird, and they lost all their head ridges and everything. And there are a whole branch of Klingons that didn't have head ridges. Kor was one of them. Well, basically, the idea is, since then, a cure was discovered. Phlox even mentioned that the cure would probably be discovered within 100 years. So that'd be around the late 2260s, 2270s, when we saw ridged head Klingons all over again. They presented Kor here, full ridge head. Oh, why? I know. You can't explain it. You can't say smooth head when they've never shown him before in this series. People would get confused because they don't go back and watch the old stuff. But just, like I say, don't use Kor. Just use generic Klingon. And if you're going to use Kor, at least make his head ridges look like Kor. It looked ugly. These are some ugly prosthetics on this Klingon who's supposed to be menacing and formidable and just sounded meek and pathetic.
Pathetic.
So yeah, that's kind of it. Again, like I said, I feel like the gimmick, the theme they wanted to run with, overtook telling a real Star Trek story. They just plopped in, here's like Casablanca with Starfleet and Klingons. And then we're going to make it black and white to give that feeling, or dress everyone up in 1940s attire. There's no explanation for it. Why is this planet? Well, I will say this. I did like the design of the city. Reminded me a little bit of, Tim Burton's Batman, the way it was constructed, like Art Deco, kind of like, I even got a steampunk feel to it with all the balloons and, airships in the air. It's kind of like that idea. So it looked cool, like I said, and it was shot well. They did the black and white pretty well. But again, it's a gimmick. It's something to draw you in. What should be drawing you in is story and characters. And unfortunately, that is something Strange New Worlds is lacking this season so far. And next week, we'll see what the story is, because, yes, it's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights. It's the Puppet Show, featuring Jim Henson Studios puppets as the crew gets turned into puppets. My God, this is happening. Questions, comments, witticisms down below. Click all the good buttons. See you guys next time.